Fighting fires may be one of the toughest jobs in the world, but when the flames are out, another tough job begins.
It's one that we don't hear as much about, hitting mystery and sometimes criminal intent against science, technology, and determination. The world of fire investigation.
Craig Wall joins us now with this special report. Craig?
Mark and Robin, you can call it the science of fire, the high-tech, behind-the-scenes process of investigating how they start. It's evolved tremendously over the years and now involves state-of-the-art forensics and highly trained specialists. Their job, to act as scientific detectives with two goals in mind: uncovering the how and why behind fires. It is dangerous and destructive, and when fire races through a building, it threatens everything in its path. But before firefighters have even finished battling the blaze, the investigation phase is already underway. After the devastating high-rise fire in the LaSalle Bank building, we wondered just how do investigators sift through the charred rubble and figure out how and where the fire started. For some answers, we traveled to the world's largest fire research lab outside Washington, D.C., to talk to the experts at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Right here is a very discrete point of melting.
It is here that clues from the toughest fires to explain are put under the microscope and the best investigators put to the test.
I'm there for the truth. I'm there to find out what started this fire.
John Allen is the senior electrical engineer at ATF and perhaps the only forensic engineer in the entire federal government.
You're kind of a scientific detective in a way.
That's exactly what I am. I'm going to say it. It's kind of like CSI on TV, but real time.
Allen is on the national response team that investigates suspicious fires around the world. He was on the team sent to assist Chicago firefighters probing the inferno in the LaSalle Bank high-rise.
In reality, we're looking for a connection that may be that big on that entire floor that is burned for 5 hours, which may have melted at that time. It may no longer exist.
At any given fire, the search for the cause and origin starts outside, where investigators gather information about exterior damage, talk to witnesses, and get an assessment from the first firefighters on the scene. Before going inside, teams go through a decontamination process to make sure evidence from one scene isn't tracked into another, contaminating it. Then the detective work begins.
We'll work from those areas of the structure that are the least damaged to those areas that are the worst or the heaviest damage.
Sometimes solving the mystery requires recreating the fire at the ATF lab in Maryland. 8 cameras hooked up to a massive computer record the fires for analysis. This one room is so large, an entire 2-story house can be built and burned inside. This day, though, it's just a single room.
You see the direction of the smoke? It's being drawn right in to that wall fire.
John Malooly is a 30-year veteran with the ATF.
Now the paper is actually being lifted up by the convective currents. There we have auto ignition. So that newspaper got hot enough that it burst into flames by itself.
He's based in Chicago and has been on the agency's national response team since its formation in 1980. He was not involved with the LaSalle Bank fire because he was doing training at the time, but has investigated hundreds of other major cases.
Once we get into that area, we'll work basically like an archaeologist. We'll dig down through the debris in layers. In the area of origin, we're going to try to look for potential causes.
Sometimes canines are used to sniff out accelerants, which may mean arson.
If somebody uses an accelerant, right away we'll have low burning.
In those cases, samples are sent to the forensic lab for computer analysis, where chemists can detect the most minute quantities of flammable liquids.
What starts fires are those high resistance or those loose connections or those momentary arcs like that.
Allen says about 30% of fires are electrical. He uses his lab to test theories and see what happens. In the LaSalle Bank fire, Allen and fellow investigators narrowed the point of origin to electrical wiring in a hallway drop ceiling and determined the fire was accidental. Sometimes, though, evidence is destroyed by the flames, making the case unsolvable. But as technology continues to progress,
this is where our fire started,
and investigators keep learning from one another, it is their hope to take the mystery out of fire investigation.
When you get to a scene, maybe there's chaos, and by the time you're done a day or a week later, hopefully you've been able to figure out what happened.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Now, in case you're wondering why we focused our report on the fire in the LaSalle Bank building and not the deadly blaze in the county building at 69 West Washington, here's why. The cause of the county building fire is still in dispute and being heavily litigated, so the ATF, not surprisingly, did not want to talk about that investigation, but you can be sure the techniques that they used were the same ones that they used in LaSalle Bank and all over the world.
So they would have a theory on the 69 West Washington, but they're not revealing it to you.
We've heard several theories on what caused it, but they want to kind of stay away from it while it's all being litigated at this point.
So they don't have a definitive cause, or they're just not releasing their opinion?
It's disputed. It's
Okay.
disputed at this point.
All
So.
right. Thank you, Craig.
Yep.